Chloe wakes up in her dorm, still feeling a little dazed from the night's events. She sits up and rubs her head, wondering if that intense encounter was actually real. She looks around the room, trying to shake off the lingering confusion. Memories of Kang walking away start flooding back, and she can't help but blush. Suddenly, she gasps as the full weight of the situation hits her. Her eyes dart over to her katana resting on the desk, reminding her of their spar. She lets out a huge sigh of relief, finally starting to calm down now that she's alone. But then she remembers her own terrifying combat trance and wonders what the hell is happening to her. She stares at her blade, completely lost in thought. Overwhelmed by everything, she just faceplants right back into her pillow. Her head is practically steaming as she tries to hide her face in the blankets. She's blushing like crazy, clearly more than a little smitten with the guy. That's when she spots a small utility knife lying on the floor. She scratches her cheek, looking completely caught off guard by its presence. Wait, did he really do all this? She looks at the trash can and realizes her messy room has been perfectly cleaned. And just like that, the yandere flags go off as her eyes turn into literal hearts. She grabs a pen and starts scribbling furiously in her diary. It's official, she's head over heels in love with him. Meanwhile, outside, Kang is having a much harder time. A colorful burst of light signals that his time is up. The painkiller blessing finally wears off, and he immediately starts coughing up blood. Every injury he just ignored hits him all at once, nearly doubling him over. He barely makes it to a nearby park bench before collapsing in exhaustion, trying to catch his breath in the quiet night. Sitting there alone, he starts reflecting on how close he came to dying. He can still see Chloe's speed. That girl is on a completely different level. Her eyes were terrifying. He knew one wrong move would have been the end. The intensity of that spar was enough to make anyone want to quit. He looks at his makeshift blade, the only thing that kept him alive. He clutches his chest, thankful that he managed to survive without any trouble. But his expression stays serious. He knows his peace and safety are on thin ice. It sounds like a bad joke, trying to reach the top using nothing but a sashimi knife. He sits there, feeling the crushing weight of his weak physical stats, especially when he compares himself to the blessing of miracle others receive. He thinks about the world's actual hero, a guy who's basically a god in human form, the one destined to save everyone from the Demon King. That guy gets Balmung, a legendary SSR sword with near unlimited power, while Kang is stuck with a basic Daisho sashimi knife with questionable craftsmanship. He clutches his head, trying to process how unfair this whole setup is. Looking up at the shooting stars, he remembers all the reasons he almost gave up. But even with a kitchen knife, he's still in the game. Kang thinks back to the original game plot, where the real hero should have already started his legendary journey by now. He can't help but feel a bit of regret for quitting the game before he could see how it all ended. In his head, he sees his life as a choice between the safe canon route and a much more dangerous secret route where he actually has to fight for a crown. Meanwhile, the actual hero of this story is just sitting in class, completely oblivious to the chaos that's coming. Because in just 3 years, the sky is going to fill with demons, and the world as they know it will be history. Humans and demons are on a collision course for a war that's destined to wipe out almost everyone, including characters Kang actually liked. He looks at the spoilers on his screen, still trying to wrap his head around the fact that this is his new reality. It's frustrating to know exactly who's going to die and feel like he's too weak to change any of it. A war, huh? He mutters to himself, staring up at the empty night sky. He's got 3 years to change the script, and he's not planning on being one of the casualties. The academy looks peaceful for now, but he knows the clock is already ticking. On the grand chessboard of this world, Kang feels like a lowly pawn trying to survive against knights and bishops. He pulls up his status window to check his blessing of the blade god again. His stats are okay, but his synchronization is barely at 1.5%, definitely not enough to face a demon army. He rubs his chin, trying to figure out how to actually level up in this mess. The system tells him his words and actions will start to carry more weight, but that's not going to win a war. Then he sees the fine print. The blessing only works if his blade is shorter than 12.8 inches. He taps the screen, hoping there's some kind of hidden buff he can unlock. But the system just shuts him down. He hasn't met the conditions to access the next tier yet. Another puzzle. he sighs, realizing his mysterious blessing is going to be a lot of work. He thinks back to his blessing of painlessness. It's a literal lifesaver, but 30 seconds is a pretty small window. He checks his phone calendar. Midterms are in May, and he's got way more on his plate than just studying. Suddenly, a high-tier B-rank sword starts glowing with a bright blue light. He looks up, sensing a powerful presence approaching his quiet corner of the academy. And that's when he meets Abel von Nibelung, the Blade Emperor's granddaughter, a teal-haired girl with sharp golden eyes and a sword almost as big as she is. She looks like she's just finished an intense training session, and she definitely isn't in the mood for small talk. Abel stands over him, radiating the kind of confidence you only get from being at the top of the food chain. Her amber eyes are intense as she stares him down, clearly wanting something. Kang starts sweating. He was just trying to have a quiet moment, and now he's stuck with a top-tier powerhouse. Without even waiting for an invite, Abel just plops down on the bench right next to him. She's huffing and puffing, looking completely annoyed by whatever's on her mind. Kang tries to slide over and give her some space, but she's not exactly making it easy. "You don't have to leave," she tells him, "just shuffle over a bit." He peeks at her from the corner of his eye, feeling incredibly awkward with her so close. Abel pulls at her collar to catch a breeze, looking completely wiped out from her workout. Kang takes a hard gulp, his face starting to heat up as she settles in. He jolts when she shifts even closer, her presence taking up all the air on the bench. They sit there in a weird, tense silence under the moonlight. Kang is internally screaming, trying to figure out why the Blade Emperor's granddaughter decided to sit with him. He looks over and she's staring right back at him with those sharp eyes. Her expression softens just a tiny bit, and he catches a hint of a blush on her cheeks. She gives him a look that says she's not planning on going anywhere anytime soon. Kang stares straight ahead, a single bead of sweat rolling down his face as he tries to process the fact that a top-tier warrior is breathing down his neck. With a sharp clack, Abel leans her massive sword against the bench, making it clear she's staying for a while. She gives him a playful grin, looking like she's enjoying how much she's throwing him off his game. Kang can barely manage to look at her, his usual calm demeanor completely shattered by her sheer presence. They sit there in a cloud of awkward silence, Abel pouting like she's got a bone to pick, and Kang looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He steals another glance at her, wondering what could possibly be going through the mind of the Blade Emperor's granddaughter. Suddenly, her expression hardens, and those sharp golden eyes lock onto him with terrifying intensity. Kang matches her gaze, trying his best to look unimpressed, even though his heart is probably doing triple time. She leans in closer, her amber eyes searching his face for some kind of answer. Kang's eyes widen as the distance between them shrinks, the tension on the bench reaching a boiling point. "Sort of," he mutters, trying to sound like he's in control of the conversation. Looking down at them from above, the situation feels even more absurd. A world-class talent and a guy in a tracksuit, just sitting on a park bench. Abel breaks into a confident smile, looking like she's finally figured something out about him. "Who knows?" she says, looking up at the moonlit sky with a mysterious expression. Her face softens for just a moment, her gaze dropping as if she's reflecting on something she doesn't want to share. But then she grabs her sword hilt with another loud clack, snapping Kang back to reality and leaving him thinking that this whole situation is beyond ridiculous. It's a quiet night at Joaquin Academy, but the mood on this bench is anything but peaceful. Kang is just trying to relax, but the girl next to him is radiating pure stress. Abel von Nibelung starts doing some intense breathing exercises, clearly trying to keep her cool. Kang just stares blankly, wondering why she's so worked up. She suddenly points a finger, her eyes wide with frustration. Kang doesn't even flinch. He's used to her outbursts by now. Abel starts squirming around on the bench, her teal hair flying everywhere as she struggles to vent. It's a lot of energy for a casual late-night hangout. She leans in way too close to complain, her face flushed red. Kang stays stoic, though he's definitely feeling the awkwardness of the situation. Their shadows stretch across the stone pavement as the night bugs chirp in the background. It's the only sound breaking the silence between her rants. Abel talks about the crushing weight of expectations. Being the granddaughter of the Blade Emperor means one tiny slip-up makes her a target for everyone. She stares off into the dark courtyard. For someone at the very top of the academy, she sounds pretty miserable. Then, she lets out a bitter little laugh. The irony of her situation isn't lost on her. Kang just sits there and listens. He doesn't have those problems. He's perfectly happy being a special entrant in a lower-tier class. He tries to say something supportive, but Abel's next comment catches him off guard. He literally chokes on his own spit. Whatever she just said, it clearly hit a nerve or was just that ridiculous. Abel starts yelling about being humiliated by someone who isn't even in her class. She's so mad she's practically vibrating. Kang watches her lose it, his expression switching between shock and genuine concern for her blood pressure. She looks him dead in the eye, her amber gaze full of fire. She's not going to let this go until she finds the person who embarrassed her. Kang just gives her a deadpan stare. He's realized by now that trying to talk sense into her when she's like this is a lost cause. Finally, she stands up and gives a big stretch. The venting session seems to have done its job. She looks out at the academy buildings, her resolve hardened. The hunt is on. She walks off into the night, leaving Kang alone on the bench. He's just glad the tornado has moved on for now. The scene shifts to the massive lecture hall the next day. The room is packed and the air is filled with the low hum of student gossip. Kang is at his desk, but he's not exactly focused on the lesson. He's more worried about blending in. He feels a pair of eyes on him and turns around. It's the red-haired girl from the training hall, Chloe. She's staring at him with a very intense, unreadable expression. Chloe's gaze is heavy. Around them, the other students are just faceless shadows in the background of their interaction. Kang quickly looks away, sweating a bit. He really doesn't want to draw any more attention to himself than necessary. He's genuinely thankful he wasn't placed in the higher-tier classes. Those are full of the protagonist types that always attract trouble. He remembers the game's elite students, arrogant and dangerous. He's much better off here in the shadows. Checking his phone, he scrolls through a fandom wiki. It's a bit surreal to see spoilers for his own life. He looks up Medea poison. According to the wiki, this faculty member is destined for a tragic end. He wonders if he should interfere. He pulls out a sleek black card, the Joaquin Express. It's his ticket to a comfortable life, and he intends to use it. For Kang, having enough money for a decent meal is a massive win. He's taking the concept of respect for good food very seriously. He gives the card a little flip. Things are finally starting to look up for him in this game-like reality. A small smirk plays on his lips. Proper meals and a peaceful life, that's the dream. Outside, the academy is beautiful under the bright sun. It looks like a paradise, but Kang knows what's coming in 3 years. Back in the lecture hall, the professor is droning on about history while students take notes. It's a typical boring afternoon. The teacher draws a legendary hero on the chalkboard, Valor Joaquin. The students are supposed to be inspired, but Kang is just exhausted. He rests his head on his arm, barely keeping his eyes open. The weight of his meta-knowledge is a lot to carry during a history lesson. The drawing of Valor Joaquin on the board is sharp and heroic, a stark contrast to Kang's own modest goals. His mind drifts to a vision of a dark stone hallway. It's a glimpse of the cannon route he's trying to avoid. He sees the silhouette of the commander of the First Legion, a monster that represents the nightmare future awaiting the world. Visions of a brutal, bloody war flash through his mind. In 3 years, this peaceful academy will be a battlefield, and he needs to be ready. A streak of light tears through the night sky like a falling star. The light erupts into a blinding flash that consumes everything. A dark figure plummets through a void of white light. On the ground, bodies are scattered across a desolate battlefield. Looming over the carnage are the silhouettes of monstrous winged demons. Cut to the present, the prestigious Joaquin Academy stands tall under a clear sky. Inside, a lecture is winding down in the massive auditorium. Kang looks on, knowing this peaceful school life is just a countdown to disaster. His gaze lands on Medea Poison, a faculty member leaning back with a smirk. She notices him staring and holds his look. She jokingly asks if he wants to run off with her, making Kang sweat. But in his mind, he sees a terrifying vision of her consumed by rage. He remembers the spoilers, a vision of her falling during a future invasion. This is information straight from the game's fandom wiki. He scrolls through the character profile, seeing the grim details of her inevitable end. He closes the window as the reality of her death sinks in. Kang looks back at her in the lecture hall. To him, she's like a doomed NPC standing in a spotlight of tragedy. The professor dismisses the class, and the room fills with the sound of students packing up. Suddenly, a commotion breaks out near the entrance. While everyone else rushes toward the noise, Kang stays in his seat. He's got a bad feeling about whatever is drawing their attention. He checks the time on his phone, which features a character from the game on the lock screen. A crowd has already gathered at the door, buzzing with excitement. Students are whispering and craning their necks to get a better look. Even from a distance, Kang can feel the shift in the room's energy. Through the parting crowd, a student walks in with the air of a natural-born king. It's the story's canon protagonist, the unnamed popular student. A wall literally cracks under the pressure of his overwhelming aura. Someone mutters about him being a lucky bastard. He's everything a main character should be: handsome, powerful, and adored, trying to keep his thoughts wholesome to avoid triggering any flags. In his head, he sees the cards of the Academy's top beauties like Rachel and Ryojo Saki. And then there's Abel von Nibelung, the granddaughter of the legendary Blade Emperor. The murmurs grow louder as the blonde hero makes his way through the hall. He flashes a perfect smile while a group of girls fawns over him. Kang grits his teeth, thinking that one round of military service in his past life was more than enough. He doesn't want any part of the war he knows is coming. In the original game, this path usually leads to a messy game over. The popular student continues his charm offensive, completely unaware of the future Kang sees. For a split second, the hero's perfect mask seems to shift into something more serious. Kang catches the look and realizes his plan to stay invisible might already be in trouble. The popular student flashes a blinding smile that radiates main character energy. Kang just watches from the sidelines, completely unimpressed by the performance. He watches the hero and his group disappear down the hall. Toward the light. He's already convinced that staying far away from that guy's face is his best bet for survival. He turns away, ready to get on with his own life. Later that night, the training hall stands quiet under the moonlight. Kang is there alone, putting in work with a wooden practice sword. He takes a breather, wiped out from the repetitive swings. He stops when he notices someone is watching him. It's a red-haired student named Chloe, looking incredibly anxious as she asks if she's in the way. Kang forces a smile, trying to act like everything is normal. He tells her it's fine, making her eyes light up. She lets out a sigh of relief, though Kang can't shake the feeling of sorrow he senses in her. To him, her blade isn't just a weapon, it's a direct line to her inner sadness. She stands there fidgeting, looking like she's about to jump out of her skin. She works up the courage to shyly offer to cook dinner for him. Kang freezes, the word dinner echoing in his mind like a trap. Her expression is so desperate, it's hard to look at. He knows he should probably say no to avoid triggering any yandere flags, but he can't bring himself to be that cold, so he calls out her name. He stands his ground while she looks up at him with those wide red eyes. She's leaning in, hanging on his every word. He rubs the back of his neck, trying to come up with a decent excuse to keep things casual. He grips his sword tight, realizing that playing it safe might be his best survival strategy. He quickly checks a guide on his phone about what to do when you encounter a yandere. Chloe comes back later in her workout gear, looking surprisingly cheerful. She's beaming at him, practically glowing with happiness. She starts giggling while Kang just stands there, totally overwhelmed by her energy. He takes a second to process the shift in her personality. She does a little spin, showing off her training outfit. Kang can't help but notice she's actually pretty fit under all that school uniform. He tries to play it cool, giving her a polite nod of approval. Chloe grabs a wooden practice sword, ready to get to work. She's bouncing with excitement, a far cry from the shy girl he saw earlier. In her head, she's convinced he's the kindest person she's ever met. Kang just watches her, sweating as she grips her weapon with sudden intensity. She unleashes a swing so fast, it leaves a trail of light in the air. Kang's jaw drops as she shatters a practice dummy like it was made of glass. He decides it's time to check his own stats again, pulling up a blue status window. He focuses on the blessing of the Blade God ability, hoping for a buff. The fine print reveals the restriction. The blessing only works with blades shorter than 12.8 inches. He starts mumbling about the absurdity of his sashimi knife powers while Chloe watches him confused. Chloe peeks at him with those big red eyes, looking a bit shy again. Kang is lost in thought, realizing he's the only one who knows the truth about his powers. She asks if they can keep going, her expression hopeful. Kang grips his wooden sword, his hands trembling slightly from the previous shock. He forces himself to look confident and tells her it's fine to continue. The training hall goes quiet as they face each other once more. Kang locks onto her movements, his gaze turning razor sharp. The sound of wood clacking against the floor echoes through the room. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts as Chloe's shy demeanor vanishes, replaced by a cold, warrior-like focus. Kang feels a bead of sweat roll down his face as he prepares for the next round. He barely has time to blink before she's on the move. She lunges forward with a speed that defies logic, leaving a blur in her wake. Kang is forced onto the defensive immediately, his eyes wide in disbelief. Her wooden sword comes down like a hammer, and Kang barely manages to get his own blade in the way. He grits his teeth, his jaw aching from the sheer force of her strike. She's faster than anything he's ever seen, her movements too fluid to track. The impact of their wooden swords sends a jolt of pain through his arms. He winces, the "it hurts" scream remaining trapped in his throat. He lets out a strained grunt as he struggles to maintain his guard. Before he can even process the block, she's already vanished from his sight. Another heavy blow lands with a resounding clack that vibrates through his entire body. Kang's focus is tested to its absolute limit as he tries to predict her next move. Chloe isn't holding back anymore, her strikes coming in a relentless barrage. A sharp crack rings out, a sound that spells disaster for Kang's wooden weapon. She slides across the stone floor with predatory grace, preparing for the final blow. The air around them thumps with the intensity of their mock battle. Kang realizes with a sinking feeling that he won't be able to hold out much longer. A final, deafening crack echoes through the training hall. His wooden sword finally gives up, snapping clean in half under the pressure. The broken tip of the blade clatters to the ground, leaving Kang defenseless. He stares at the useless stump of wood in his hand, his breathing heavy. Chloe stops her assault, her expression softening back into one of concern. She looks at him with wide, curious eyes, sensing something is about to happen. A massive wave of blue energy suddenly erupts from Kang, swirling around him like a storm. He looks completely transformed, his eyes glowing with an eerie light as he grips a small, lethal sashimi knife.